Well, good evening, friends. Father Frank Pavone here, National Director of Priests for Life. Thank you for spending some time with me this evening for our live broadcast. It is Monday, the 1st of March of 2021. It's already March, the third month of the year. My goodness. And it's going fast. But I have some interesting and exciting things to share with you. I was with the President yesterday, and as were many other people who were at the CPAC conference. We'll talk about that in a moment. Well, first, let's begin with prayer from Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day, my book of pro-life prayers for each day of the year. And Judges, the book of Judges, chapter 13, verse 7 says, "The boy is to be a Nazirite, set apart to God from birth." Reflection. The angel of the Lord tells Samson's parents that his special relationship with God is set before his birth. God's special relationship with the child in the womb appears regularly in Scripture, highlighting the sanctity of the lives of all such children. Let us pray. Lord, we cannot know the plans you have for each unborn child. May all people respect the special call that is given to each one of us. Amen. Well, if you don't have your copy yet of this book, you can go to prolifereflectionsforeveryday.com and order one. I'll be happy to sign it for you and personalize it in any way that you indicate to us. prolifereflectionsforeveryday.com. And, we've been improving our sets here in the studio, and the various books that we have on these shelves. Each month we're going to show the products that we highlight for that month. So that's part of our backdrop. Of course, a picture of President Trump there. And boy, was he smiling yesterday as the crowd greeted him in the Orlando, just 45 minutes from here, and at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, which is held each year at this time. And I was very happy to be invited by my friends and colleagues, Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Matt heads up the whole CPAC event, and he asked me to come to celebrate the Mass each morning for the Catholic participants. And we had, some of you were there. If you were there, let me know in the comments. In fact, let us know where you're from also. That's always nice to see. But if you were there, especially at CPAC, love to hear your thoughts and reflections and your experience there. I'll talk a little bit about mine. And if you saw the President's speech, let me know what you thought about that as well. And we'll talk a little bit about it. So, the Conservative Political Action Conference brings together people of all different religious backgrounds. I was doing the Mass each morning. There were Jewish services going on. There was a Protestant service taking place. Really a wide range of religious backgrounds, a large range of ages. I saw a lot of college-age students there. Even some high school students, all the way up to the full range of age. And all of these people, some of them were there for the first time, and others have been coming for years and years. But all of these people deeply committed patriots. And this was the beautiful thing that brought us together. Patriotism is a virtue. I don't know why some people think it's a vice, even some religious leaders. Oh, well, you can't be, too much in love with your own nation. Give me a break. You can't be too much in love with your own family, could you perhaps? Why? Or your own parish? What about your own nation? Of course, we need to be in love with our nation because we're in love with God. And God has blessed this nation in an exceptional way. Don't give me this garbage about, nationalism is a sin. Go ahead, go start your own nation and leave us alone. We want to love our country. We will love our country. And we will defend our country first. That doesn't mean we don't love all the other people on the earth. We do. But we know that we can best serve the rest of the planet if we have our own house in order and strong. And this was a dominant theme, wasn't it, of the president's remarks. the strength of our nation and the need to keep it strong going forward. But before I go into more of what the president said, let me just talk about the experience overall of CPAC. Great talks by a lot of strong leaders in our country. Senator Ted Cruz gave a very, very rousing speech at the beginning of the 3 days of the conference, and we had people there like Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, and various members of Congress who have become very well known, and I got a chance to chat with a number of them, like Congressman Jim Jordan and Representative Matt Gaetz from here in Florida, and many others, Representative Mike Johnson from Louisiana. I saw these men there, and some of the new freshman members of Congress were there, some of whom I've known for many years, like Representative Michelle Fischbach. She was there from Minnesota. She's one of the pro-life women who were elected in this past November's election. And, you know, President Trump brought out in his speech, by the way, how his coattails brought so many people into Congress, saw to it that while the Republicans were expected by some of these clueless political commentators who lean Democrat, and of course that accounts for a lot of their cluelessness, said, oh, the Republicans are going to lose dozens of seats in the House in the election. Oh, they didn't lose one. In fact, they gained a good number of seats, and including a whole host of pro-life women. And so I got a chance to speak with some of them there at this conference. Many, many others speaking from a point of view of either political experience or experience in government, and from the point of view of activism. Various experts in different kinds of activism, because CPAC has the word action in it, the Conservative Political Action Conference. And action is certainly what the president spoke about, many, many different things, too many things for us to go into in exhaustive detail, but it was a very high energy and positive speech. You know, reflecting on the crowd that was there, I said a little bit about the diversity of the crowd. But what you also saw was their complete determination to continue this movement, as we've been saying all along. If you've been listening to me during the course of the election and the days and weeks after that, and I met many of you who watch our programs regularly. Thank you for doing that and for letting me know that. But the enthusiasm and the determination of everyone there reflected what I've been saying to you during these weeks, and what the president has been saying, President Trump, that this movement of making America great and keeping it great has only just begun. Because remember, it's not limited to a presidential administration. It flows from our love of the country and the principles on which it was founded. And so it's only just begun. President Trump laid a foundation. He set a vision, and he didn't only set a vision, he made, with his team and his governance, significant progress towards implementing that vision. I still, and in fact, I've only just begun saying and urging you and pleading with you and with everyone who listens to me to study, read up on the accomplishments of President Trump and his administration. We've got to study those accomplishments so that we can defend them and build on them. People don't understand the accomplishments and the vision that they implement. And that's why too many people find it hard to understand, first of all, why we're so passionate about all this. And secondly, they find it all too easy to dismiss the presidency of Donald Trump, or all too easy to dismiss the MAGA movement. President Trump referred in his remarks yesterday to Trumpism, and he said, look, he said, I didn't make up the term. Because, you know, he doesn't, and he said it again, and he says this all the time, it's not about him. It's about us. Us, a movement that is grounded in some key principles. And so he took some time to explain, well, what are some of these principles of Trumpism? Of course, he emphasized values. He mentioned about defending innocent life, and that, as it always does, got a good reaction from the crowd. Defending innocent life. You know, these people who were gathered these past few days, strongly pro-life. I mean, I saw that in the remarks of everybody who was coming up to me, the remarks of those who came to my masses, and of course I preached every day on the sanctity of life. I saw it in the conversations I had, too many to count, where people talked about how they defend life in their own communities. And I heard about it in the media interviews that I did. One of the things that happens at these conferences is that media booths are set up in the hallway of the hotel. It's called Broadcast Row, and you have one booth after another of all various media outlets, outlets that you would be familiar with, and some big, some small, some national, some local, some radio, some television, podcast, internet TV, all different types of media outlets. And I got interviewed by an awful lot of them. In fact, some of my interviews started at 6:30 in the morning and went right up to dinner time. We were going from one booth to another. Some of them were pre-scheduled. Others, you know, I was there and I knew them and they knew me, and they said, Father, come and talk to us. And still others really didn't know me that well, but agreed to interview me, and then they were quite happy at the discussion that we had. And in all of these interviews, people were affirming our commitment to pro-life and asking me about the critical importance of that issue for the future of America and for in conservative politics. The place that pro-life plays, by the way, in the electoral politics of the conservative movement is a very stable place. And I want to emphasize this because, you know, at the CPAC, there's a straw poll taken. We each get an app. There's an app. There's a conference app, and it, you know, besides showing you the schedule of events and the speakers and various reminders of different events throughout the day, the conference app also gives you the opportunity to express your position on a number of things. This is called the straw poll. And one of the series of questions in that poll has to do with, well, what do you identify as the most important issue? And you know, people will choose between a large number of issues, and it's similar to the kind of questions that are asked in electoral campaigns. What is the issue that's going to most determine your vote? And we have to understand something about the position of pro-life. It's foundational, and conservatives know that. What I mean to say is, they will not support pro-abortion politicians. In fact, it's such a settled issue. It's really on the level of a non-negotiable. That this means, okay, you know, we know that, we've known that for a long time. And so there'll be an initial sifting out of the people who don't get it on the most fundamental basic issues. And then having made that initial sifting out of those that take non-negotiable positions, you know, and there are a lot of litmus tests, by the way, that we all make. We would not elect somebody who said, I support terrorism, or I want to take away, you know, women's right to vote, or things like that. So it has become, for pro-life, it has become such a non-negotiable and a settled foundational issue that it's practically an automatic process that we eliminate the abortion supporters from consideration for our support. The reason I say that is because it's so foundational, people are not necessarily going to jump up and say, well, oh yes, the most important issue for me right now in this whole scenario is protecting the unborn. It's the most foundational issue. But when we ask them in this straw poll about the most important issues, well, election integrity, all right, there are laws being proposed in various states for that. That was number one. Constitutional rights. Number two, well, those of us who are protecting pro-life and the right to life and the unborn, we know that these two top issues tie in integrally with that. I mean, life is the first of our rights, and rooted in the Declaration of Independence, of course, on which the Constitution builds. And then other issues in order, descending order, immigration and the border wall, reopening the economy, the Second Amendment, taxes, budget and spending, and national security and foreign policy, followed by pro-life. But don't be fooled by it. It certainly doesn't mean that people are not seeing pro-life as crucially important. No, in fact, it's foundational. And again, that was reflected in the many conversations I had from early in the morning to late at night. And you know, interestingly, among the media interviews that I did, international media were there. I was interviewed by a Chinese media outlet, for example, and another one from Japan was there, and a third one interviewed me from Brazil. And you know what was very fascinating about this? The interest that these international brothers and sisters have in what the direction of America is right now. The interest they have in it. Because many of these people know full well the dangers of going down the road of socialism. They know the dangers of the kind of policies that the Democrats are pushing. And they know something else, that the direction of America is going to impact them. For better or for worse, we impact the whole world. We are the primary firewall, the primary safeguard against tyranny in the world. And therefore, our success is their success. And our compromise on these principles, God forbid, is a danger not just to us, but to them. So I found that very, very fascinating to see the interest of these, and so many great encounters with our international community right there at CPAC. And CPAC has been held in various countries of the world. As you may know, these conferences do not just take place in the United States. They've taken place in various other countries of the world. I mentioned about the media, and besides our friends at Breitbart Media, for example, and outlets like that. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Buck Sexton show. That's an increasingly widespread and popular program. Buck had me on, and he said something pretty funny at the outset of our interview. He said, my mom is a big fan of yours, and boy, would I be in trouble with her if I didn't have you on. And I noticed that dynamic actually quite a bit in my interaction with whether it's media personalities or political people or whatnot. Very often their parents are involved in our work at Priests for Life or follow our ministry in one way or another, and it's kind of funny to see that dynamic happening. But Buck Sexton, many others there that interviewed me. But besides all of them, as many of you are commenting, Right Side Broadcasting Network was there. Not only covering the event, broadcasting the event, and really giving access to these speeches and rallies of the president like nobody else does, in an uninterrupted way, and showing the crowds and so forth. This is how Right Side Broadcasting Network has grown. But they had a booth there in this broadcast row, and I kind of used that as my main headquarters during the time of these few days. Did some of the on-air commentary, as no doubt you saw if you were watching them. And really, it's a great team over there at RSBN, and we had a chance to talk and to of course, listen to the president together and to evaluate everything that was going on there. So, the president described this Trumpism, and he said, again, not my term, he said, people have been calling it that, but what does it mean? He talked about the defense of life, talked about values, strong family, strong economy, strong borders, strong military, good trade deals. There's common elements to all of this. Protection is one of the themes that goes throughout all this. Protection of the Constitution, protection of our values, protection of life, born and unborn, protection of freedom. Why do we have a military? Not because we're militaristic, but because we're free. And that freedom cannot be taken for granted. Freedom has to be defended in every generation. So Trumpism, the president pointed out, and I have always been pointing this out as well, is rooted in principles. And it's the principles that then make this country great. You see, this is where, and I know many of you are just, 1,000% right on the same page with me about this, and you articulate it very well also in your comments and in your conversations with others. You ever notice how our critics and the anti-Trumpers and the deluded Democrats will say things like, "Oh, well, you people worship Trump." I had some people in the fake Catholic media. There's fake news media in the secular world, and there's also various Catholic media that are also fake. Not only because they invent things that aren't true, but because they emphasize things in an unbalanced way. And they've said this about me over the years. Yeah, he's a worshiper of Trump. These people are, they're demented. And in this conference, I only saw it Thursday night. I was being rolled in. There was this statue of President Trump. I've gone to so many different Catholic events where you have these stand-up cutouts of Pope Francis. Have you seen these? And people, and then they go next to it. I'm going to get a picture of it and so forth. And I don't hear people criticizing that. And some of these deluded, demented anti-Trumpers were saying, you see, it's like these people worshiping the golden calf. What in the world is wrong with these people? I'll tell you one of the things that's wrong with them. They have no appreciation of the values that are behind Trumpism, that are behind MAGA. No appreciation or understanding whatsoever of the values. And therefore, because that's a blind spot in their minds, the only thing they can default to is, this is idol worship. Because they skip over the very thing that makes President Trump a great leader and that makes America a great country, which is adherence to and fidelity to the principles starting with freedom and family and life and faith in God. These are principles that the president champions and he fights for. And he fights for by instituting policies that, as I say again, we need to study deeply because they actually advance these things. So he did that in his speech. He pointed out, and this was one of his strongest lines, how this has been the most disastrous, this presidency now, this administration that we're in now under Biden, most disastrous first month of any U.S. presidency, and he went through some of the reasons for that. The immigration policy the opening up of the border in an unregulated way, the catch and release has been reintroduced. It doesn't matter who it is, a murderer, rapist, catch them. If you catch them, you just release them again into our country. Come back in 2-3 years, for your court date, and they don't come back. The Democrat politicians that want these garbage policies, I don't see them welcoming those people on the front lawn of their house. And this is the hypocrisy of the whole thing. Sure, let these people loose to go into our streets where our children are. Let them loose to go wherever they want, anywhere else in America, but not on our property. It's the same kind of hypocrisy that wants to take away our guns, and they have their our armed security helping them, and they want to tear down the walls protecting the nation, but they don't want to tear down the walls protecting their own house. It's so hypocritical. It's ridiculous. The president talked about. Let me talk about the political dimensions of his speech. If you listen to the speech, I encourage you to listen to it again. He emphasizes many, many times the Republican Party. He said pretty much at the outset of the speech that he is not interested in starting a third party. Now, I don't think we've ever been in a situation where we have been closer to being able to pull that off. For years and years, people talk about, should there be a third party? But there was never who would be the leader strong enough to actually attract enough people to pull something like that off? Because you can't just have, good ideas. You can't just have a political leader. You've got to have somebody who really commands a tremendous amount of strength from coast to coast. I don't think we've ever been so close to being able to pull that off. But I don't think it's the right thing to do, and neither does he. Now, hear me out, though. There's an important distinction I want to make here. We need a third force. One of the key leaders in the conservative movement, one of the founders of the conservative movement, who's become a friend of mine and has helped our ministry very much over the years, is Mr. Richard Viguerie. Many of you may know of Mr. Viguerie. Check out conservativehq.com, and you'll see some tremendous work that he does and guidance and teaching that he gives to conservatives and patriots in America. Richard Viguerie. He has always spoken about the need for a third force, okay? So you don't have to create a different political party. And President Trump, again, he made it clear yesterday that he's not going to do that. He wants to strengthen the Republican Party. And he said the party is strong and the party is united. He said it is a fiction, and of course it's a fake news strategy to try to get people to think that there's some kind of war and this terrible division within the party, and the fake news media wants to foster a civil war within the Republican Party. The president said, no, the party is united. And friends, it's united around him. Part of that straw poll I was mentioning before also asked, who would you support in the 2024 primaries? And who the winner of that poll was? President Donald Trump. So we want to see him, and I'll get to that in a moment about 2024. We want to see him continuing leading the party. And he is de facto, whether people like it or not, the leader, because he's the leader of this movement. And that goes back to Mr. Viguerie's idea of a third force. You don't have to set up structurally a different party, but you need a renewal movement within the party. You've got the infrastructure, and it's good and it's strong and it's stood the test of time. But you need a force renewing it, and President Trump has brought that kind of a force into this party. The willingness to fight for our values in a new way, a new configuration of ideas, where we, for example, we see this man is a peacemaker. You know, the left doesn't own the concept of peace. The president keeps us out of endless, needless wars, ridiculous wars, like he says. And he's been the only president in decades not to get us into a new war. And he has advanced peace in the Middle East. These historic peace accords, again, to the demented anti-Trumpers, and they are demented, it is a disease. They can't even see the value of that. They can't see it. They don't see it. They don't want to see it. Peace. Peace accords with Israel and Arab nations. Luke, this is religion. There's another one of these guys. Yes, there's states, stick to religion, don't talk about politics. What in the world do you think makes politics go in the right direction, Luke? Come on, wake up. Politics, have you ever read the Founding Fathers? Have you read the Founding Fathers? To see what religious men they were? Saying, like George Washington said, that indispensable supports to this experiment in self-governance are religion and morality. If a people are going to govern themselves, and that's what our politics is about, they got to know the difference between right and wrong. Otherwise, you're making decisions that are bad for you and your family and your nation and your economy and your... Oh, for goodness sake, where are these people coming from that don't see the connection between politics and religion? Where are they coming from? Why do we have so many clergy who seem to be so clueless about this? Clueless! So, but in any case, yeah, it's a matter of strengthening, and the party is unified, and the president said, you know, the only disunity is that you got a few Washington establishment rhinos, and then some of you were talking about the rhinos, who the only disunity is between them and the grassroots Americans, the grassroots patriots, who were so well represented there at the CPAC conference. Now, as far as 2024, the President Trump I'm talking about, all but declared his readiness to run. Again, he didn't outright formally make a declaration of that. It's a little too early for that. But there were two things he said. And the second thing he said twice. He said, yeah, wouldn't it be great to win against them yet again? And then he said that because of the radical Democrat policies that we see and how out of touch they are with the American mainstream, they will lose the Congress, these Democrats, in 2022, the House and the Senate. And then he said in 2024, once again, a Republican will take the White House. And then he looked at us and he said, and I wonder who that might be. So he is obviously leading this party and this movement. Now, one of you was saying, you know, we really want to have him speaking more. We want to hear him more. You will, mark my words, guaranteed. This is just he restarted the process yesterday of standing before the American public and making his message known. You can be completely confident that you will be hearing a lot more about that and a lot more about that directly from him. So that's what we're going to see a lot of. The president reiterated so many of these important accomplishments, as he does in all his rally speeches, and he talked about the I mentioned before about the peace accords. He also talked about America being an energy superpower, energy independent for the first time in decades. And this is a good thing. This is a great thing. This is something that people should be happy about. And these Democrat policies want to lead us in the opposite direction. He talked about the medical miracle that took place in regard to fighting the China virus. And he again said, I call it the China virus. So do I. And so should we all. Came from China. They're responsible, and they should be held accountable. But he said it is a medical miracle. Never has have the medical advances that have been made against this virus taken place so effectively in such a short time, in all of human history, in all of medical history. Then, of course, we heard again yesterday, and I wasn't at all surprised, the chant that has never been heard in American politics in gatherings of their political leaders, even the most popular ones, "We love you." And you've heard me speak about this and reflect on this during the election season. Why under President Donald Trump, all of a sudden, do we have a brand new chant in these political rallies? "We love you." That's, 4 more years, and there's other political chants that we're very familiar with. But the genesis of this one is very telling, and it's very significant. He loves America like we do. He says it like we do. So many politicians, we can't say we love you. I mean, yeah, we might support them, we might vote for them, we might really sacrifice hard. I mean, if you're going to sacrifice and support somebody in an election, you sacrifice, you work hard. And I've seen that clear across this country for decades in my work. People pound the pavement, they just exhaust themselves working for the candidate of their choice. And certainly you can say there's a form of love there. But never has it translated into such a heartfelt expression as we've seen in these Trump gatherings, and I want to tell you why I think that is. Because so many politicians, it's like the norm, give you the feeling that they're disconnected from you. Yes, you want them, and you get the right ones, you want them in the position that they're in, and you'll support them. But to say we love you requires a sense of real connection on a soul level, on a heart level. It's because of how hard he fights for us, right? There's a connection there on a deeply human level. We know he's not faking. He's not evading. He thinks and talks in a way that you know what he's thinking. First of all, he's been the most transparent president we've ever had. Sometimes people, not me, but some people have complained about his tweeting. That makes him the most transparent president. What is the president thinking right now? What does he think about this? How is he reacting to that? Is he mad about this? Does he like that? And, years and years and decades of presidents, we would wonder, because they'd be behind 27 different, walls of seclusion. Who knows what he's thinking? This president let us know what he's thinking. As things happened in real time, directly to the American people, bypassing the censorship of the media. So yeah, I liked his tweets. And this is part of the dynamic that has happened. Such a connection, such a real person that, and we see him fighting. We see he brought a new spirit of fighting for what is right. And that's what the connection is. And it's a connection of things that are so important to us, our faith, our religious freedom. I said to many of the media there at CPAC, as they were asking me different questions about the whole topic of religious freedom, I said, I'm not looking for a president that lives my faith. I'm looking for a president that's going to let me live my faith. And this is what this president has done more than anybody else. So he said we're in a dangerous moment A lot of very destructive policies are being enacted by the Democrats. It's a dangerous moment, but friends, it's not a permanent moment. That's the important thing to always keep in mind. And it's not a permanent moment because, as he said, this movement hasn't stopped. It hasn't even slowed down. I can honestly tell you that the enthusiasm and the commitment I saw, the determination and conviction among these people these last few days at this conference matched anything I saw in the months before the election. Matched it in enthusiasm and conviction and determination. We've got the greatest people in the world working, all of us working and fighting together to make this country and keep this country great with the blessings God has given us. President Trump points to God, not to himself, to God. And that's who we point to as well. Well, let me see some of your comments. Feel free to ask me what you want to ask. Let's see. Some of you are. I thought he was funny, especially when he got on mainstream media's nerves. Yes, Sylvia, I agree with that. You're liking his tweets. It's really great. Yes, thank you for the encouragement. He's authentic. We love him because he's authentic. He's honest. He keeps his promises. That's one of the reasons that we love him. He keeps his promises. Denise is asking, do you think Trump will be president again? If he runs again, yes, I certainly do. I think he's got the support that he needs to have, and he'll build it even greater. Joe is asking if I got to greet the president, not this time around, yesterday's event. No, but certainly the energy and, oh gosh, just the closeness, as we were saying, was very much there. Many of you are saying that you saw me in the various broadcasts. Thank you very much for that. Cheryl is asking how many were in attendance. There were hundreds. It was in the hundreds. I don't know what I actually didn't hear the specific number. Kathy is saying, I like his dance moves. You know, he's got some characteristic moves now. And he's got, of course, a characteristic playlist that's pretty energizing when he comes to these events. Lucille is asking, did I get to meet Mike Lindell? Yes, I have met Mike before. We've been together at various other events. We know each other, and got to spend actually some time with him yesterday. Oh, Lindsay, thank you so much. Oh, my goodness. Lindsay is saying, will you say something about the Roe v. Wade premiere? Forgot to tell you, that was one of the big parts of the CPAC event, and it's something I've been very much involved in. So let me spend a moment explaining this to you. Thanks, Lindsay. Roe versus Wade is a movie that's coming out in about a month. In fact, a month from tomorrow, April 2nd. It's going to come out online. It's an online release of a movie that has been in preparation for years. You may know Nick Loeb. He's an actor himself. And Nick has written this movie. He reached out to me a few years ago and invited me to be a consultant in this whole process of putting this movie together. Likewise, Alveda King has been, and others on my Priests for Life team, Janet Morana, our executive director. We've all been involved in giving input into this movie about Roe v. Wade. Now, as you know, Roe v. Wade was the Supreme Court case that legalized abortion in our country throughout all 9 months of pregnancy, together with Doe v. Bolton, the companion case. The film is actually about the case itself. Now, there are many different personalities involved, and this was one of the things I gave input on during the course of the production of this movie. That is the different personalities that it highlights. Anytime you're going to study the abortion movement or the pro-life movement or the case of Roe v. Wade, you're going to come across certain individuals. I was privileged to know most of them, some of them very, very, very well. So Dr. Bernard Nathanson, Nick actually plays Dr. Nathanson himself in the film. Nick Nathanson was one of the architects, one of the key architects of the pro-abortion movement and of the abortion industry. I got to know him because he eventually became pro-life, and then he became a Catholic, baptized by the same bishop that ordained me, Cardinal O'Connor, who gave me permission to do Priests for Life. And Dr. Nathanson became a great friend of Priests for Life because he said, and you see this in the film, by the way, it delves into the strategies that Nathanson and his colleagues used to launch the abortion industry, and one of them was the Catholic strategy. He said, let's isolate, let's denigrate the Catholic community. They made that out to be the bad guy, so as to try to separate the people from the Catholic leaders. And Dr. Nathanson always said, he said to me many times, and this was why he liked what we do at Priests for Life, he said, we would have never gotten away with what we did if you, the clergy, had been united, purposeful, and strong. Think about that. He said the biggest obstacle in the way then, and he said the biggest obstacle in the way still, is the church. The other side still acknowledges that. Remember Hillary Clinton a few years ago when Secretary of State said the religious beliefs have to be changed? Remember that? Yeah, she said religious beliefs have to be changed so that we will be able to advance our agenda. I see a comment there from Right Side Broadcasting. Thanks, friends. Great team. Loved being with you yesterday. Absolutely. Thank you very much. We're going to continue working together. But still on this theme of Roe v. Wade. So this movie, so Nathanson, I knew Nathanson. Norma McCorvey, of course, she was the plaintiff of the case. She was the Jane Roe. Pivotal to starting the pro-life movement was a priest, Father James McHugh, who later became Bishop McHugh. And I knew him. Yes, I'm from New York, as Margaret is asking. And Cardinal O'Connor ordained me, and Bishop McHugh was one of the bishops there in New York. And I got to know him, and he was very, 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 very pro-life and very active in starting the National Right to Life Committee. Dr. Mildred Jefferson, whom I also knew, is also featured in the movie, one again of the pioneers of the pro-life movement. So this movie, I've seen previous versions of it as it got better and better. It was refined more and more with the input of many people. And during this CPAC conference on Friday night, we had a premiere showing of this movie to the participants. We even had a red carpet. Some of the actors were there. And I was able to do a lot of interviews about this film and talking to people about the importance of it. And then we had this beautiful event with photo opportunities, and then we watched the movie. I tell you what, it's a great tool now for the pro-life movement because it delves into how the case progressed. It highlights the debates that were going on between the justices and the behind-the-scenes political maneuvers, as well as the influences from their family members, because two of the justices that ended up voting for Roe v. Wade had members of their family who worked at Planned Parenthood, a clear conflict of interest. You see that dynamic coming out. You see the dynamic of pressure from the media. You see the dynamics that were created by the fact that Roe v. Wade, when it was first introduced and the case began progressing, had a situation where instead of 9 justices on the court, there were only 7 because there were 2 vacancies that happened, one shortly after the other because of health reasons. And President Nixon at the time was nominating 2 replacements for the court. And so the initial vote of Roe v. Wade would have been in favor of Roe, that is in favor of abortion, by 4-3. Okay, 4-3, that makes 7, right? The justices initially voted 4-3 in favor of the petitioner. At that time, Chief Justice Warren Burger was in the minority, and he said, I want the case re-argued. Now, President Nixon, a Republican, the understanding was the judges he would appoint would be conservative. He did appoint 2 conservative judges that got onto the bench. And so the thinking was, with Nixon's 2 additions to the court, the 4-3 in favor of Roe could shift to a 5-4 against Roe. And some thought that was why, it should be re-argued. In any case, it was re-argued. The case was argued twice, but it ended up 7-2 in favor of Roe because some of the justices changed their minds. And only one of the 2 that Nixon added voted in favor of life. Fascinating lessons, but there are lessons to be learned in the film about the strategy of the movement going forward. I just want to bring you to your attention that this is coming out. It'll be out on various internet platforms. We'll give you all the details as they are being now finalized by the team that has brought us this movie. But it's going to be a powerful tool because remember, it was issued in 1973, and now we are approaching, therefore, the 50th anniversary of this decision. 2023 will be the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and that is going to be a very significant moment for our movement, and I think now we are going to be able to launch a season of education about this decision, and this movie will be a great tool to do that. I saw a deacon on a moment ago bringing greetings from the Buffalo Diocese. Thank you, Deacon Joe. We have Deacons for Life, everybody, as you may know, and that's part of our ministry, and I love the deacons. I was involved in helping train deacons in the early years of my priesthood, and had 3 deacons in the parish where I served before starting with Priests for Life. Deacons are a tremendous part of the ministry of the church. God bless you for that. And the Diocese of Buffalo, we've had a lot of great Priests for Life events there over the years. I've spoken in a lot of the parishes and had some very, very good events there in Buffalo, and we thank the diocese there for all of that. One of you was mentioning Governor DeSantis, one of the greatest governors in the country. I did not have a chance to talk to him directly either at the CPAC, but he was there, and we're glad to have him here in Florida. Really, he's a blessing for all of us. Judy is saying, love your Trump picture behind you. Thank you, Judy. It's a new one, and we'll keep it up there for sure. In fact, we're getting a new Trump sign for the front of our building. All throughout the election, of course, we had the Trump-Pence sign, and now we're having a sign put up there that says, thank you, President Trump, and on the bottom it says prolifemaga.com, and that's a website that you can sign up with, and that's the action website to do what we've been talking about, learning, building upon, defending, and spreading the accomplishments of the Trump administration for making America great. prolifemaga.com. I invite you to sign up there, brothers and sisters, and you'll get our action alerts. Jackie's asking where my hat is. Oh, it's in the other room. I'll bring it in some of these other evening broadcasts. I got my MAGA hat. I have a few different versions of the MAGA hat, and I hope you have one also. Great Carol is mentioning Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota. She is fabulous, and thank you for mentioning her. There were so many people. So many people. Now, Maria is asking, where can we hear your address to the conference? As I mentioned, I said the masses. And you go to cpac.org. That's the main website, cpac.org. And I know that my Sunday Mass was part of the conference broadcast. And hopefully, therefore, you can find it there at cpac.org, together with the other marvelous, fantastic, and inspiring talks that were given at this particular event. One of you is saying, I'm not Catholic, but I respect Father's opinion. Seems like a great person. Thank you very much. And yes, because, we try to evaluate these things from the perspective of the Word of God, not just from the Catholic faith, but the Word of God as it applies to all Christians, and good common American sense and reason. And so thanks for saying this. John is asking a good question. What is driving the late abortion laws? Isn't it strange, John, that we would have these kinds of laws that implement policies like, oh, you can have an abortion even in the 7th, 8th, and 9th month of pregnancy, that the American people have never agreed with? Laws are supposed to represent the direction that the people want the country to go, right? Because our lawmakers work for us, not the other way around. And yet we have, and it's the Democrats again, it's the Democrats pushing. It started with Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade actually allowed, back in almost 50 years ago now, allowed abortion throughout pregnancy. Actually, at first, as the case was being argued, the justices almost ended up saying that it should be allowed only in the first 3 months. And in fact, many Americans, ironically, think that that's what the decision actually said, that it's allowed only in the first 3 months. As one of you is saying now, evil is driving it. That's the best way to summarize it. But then this concept of viability was thrown in at the last minute when the justices were writing the decision. There had not been, and they used viability as a cutoff point. Only at that point and beyond could a state, if they wanted to, they didn't have to, prohibit abortion. And some states do have that prohibition on their books, but it's unenforceable because of the way the courts have treated the so-called right to abortion. But you have, therefore, a policy of abortion on demand, even with Roe v. Wade. But you have also, more recently, some states wanting to make it explicit that there shall be no protection for these babies right up until birth. And even after birth, if they survive the abortion, as some do, the Democrats are not in favor of protecting them even then. What's driving this? Well, the later you go into the pregnancy, the more expensive the abortion procedure is. In the earliest stages of pregnancy, a few $100s. These late abortions can be as much as $25,000 for an abortion procedure. Can you imagine, therefore, how much the abortion industry wants late-term abortion to be legal? And there will always be reasons. People will point out, well, more and more abortions are now through the chemical method. Yes, that's true. An increasing number of abortions are done in the chemical method. But that will never replace surgical abortion. The late-term abortions are always going to, as long as abortion is legal, going to be part of it, because there's many dynamics that cause a mom who initially might want to keep her child to later on be in a situation where, because of financial downturn in her life or relationship breakup or other pressures, she no longer feels able to raise that child. Secondly, the ambivalence. What do? I don't want to kill the baby, but I can't raise the baby. The ambivalence can easily last for months and months before any kind of decision is made. And then thirdly, there's the factor of denial. Some young moms are in such denial about their pregnancy, or don't even know how to interpret the signs of their own body, that they don't even realize what's going on until it's very late in the pregnancy. So evil, denial, greed, an unscrupulous abortion industry that pushes it, all of these are factors in why these late abortions happen. There's so much more to talk about, but we've gone for an hour already. It's amazing how fast this time passes, so I'm going to leave it there for tonight, friends, and we'll be back in the morning with Mass. Mass every morning, 10 a.m. Join us, spread the word, spread this video while we're still on. If you share this video, you help us a great deal. If you like the video, if you comment on the video, it goes a long way in building the audience. That's the way these platforms work. So thank you for doing that when you do watch. Share, comment, like, subscribe, and let's stick together. Blessings again to all of you, especially those of you that were there at the CPAC. Thanks again to Right Side Broadcasting and Deacon Joseph in Italian. Buonanotte, good night, and may the Lord bless all of you. and strengthen you and answer all your prayers. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your comments and prayers. And God bless you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
I think we have Richard Lee, we have Jim Garlow, and we have Father Frank Pavone. Someplace there in the audience, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone, on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.